Good. Good morning, everybody. I am Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz from the Bronx, and we are here today to discuss a very important matter. I'm here with my colleague from the Senate, Senator Tim Kennedy, from the other end of the state, from Buffalo area, as well as many of the leaders fighting for climate change, fighting for jobs. I just want to mention their names before we introduce them. We have from the CWA District 1, Haylene Choi, their political director, Lauren Bailey, director of climate policy, Tri-State Transportation Campaign, Rachel Patterson, climate and legislative associate from Environmental Advocates, and Miranda Nelson, New York, New Jersey, director of Jobs to Move America. The reason we are here, Senator Kennedy and I, are announcing legislation, two pieces of legislation that we believe can do two things which some people think can't be done at the same time, but we know can be done at the same time, which is to both create and protect jobs and fight climate change. We believe that improving our environment is good for the economy, not bad for the economy, and the legislation that we have will do just that. We want to reduce carbon emissions in the transportation sector and at the same time promote good new climate-friendly jobs. And we want to create incentives to make that happen. We believe that that the value of zero-emission buses in combating climate change is enormous. Some of what we're doing is currently the policy of the MTA in the New York metropolitan region. We want to make sure that that this takes place throughout the state. And we believe that this can happen. And that is why we have representatives of labor here, of the environmental community. And we can't wait any longer. The time to move on some of these policies is now. And the green jobs component of the proposal includes Assembly Bill 10559, Senate Bill 8548, which would require public transit systems to include best value contracting framework in their evaluation of procurement contract proposals for the purchase of zero-emission vehicles and charging equipment. Green transit component from our other bill, 9046 and S7349, would require public transit systems, and this is really key, to purchase only zero-emission buses starting in 2029. Now, some may say, well, given the current crisis, are we going to be able to do this? Or are we going to have to delay things further than we already have? And it's my belief that taking these steps, passing this legislation, is more important than ever. And we should use what's taking place now as an opportunity to really move things forward on protecting our environment, on protecting jobs in the state of New York. I could go on indefinitely talking about these bills, but I think we have excellent advocates here. But I first want to turn it over to my good colleague from the state Senate, Senator Tim Kennedy.
Thank you very much, Assemblyman. And I want to just recognize Assemblyman Dinowitz for all of his leadership, not just on these initiatives, but so many other important pieces of legislation and advocacy initiatives that are helping to move our state in the right direction. These two pieces of policy are extremely important. I want to recognize the advocates as well. You know, nothing can get done on its own. And I'll tell you, we really need all of you to band together to help create the momentum to get these bills over the finish line. And we think that these bills are right, not only in protecting the environment and creating a new green jobs economy, but right in where we stand today with so many moving parts, with this pandemic that has really undermined the economic viability across our state. We need to continue to try to build momentum toward the future and recapture that economic momentum that unfortunately we lost because of this pandemic. We got to just continue to drive the message forward. The two pieces of legislation that the Assemblyman mentioned are really transformative in nature. We're making a strong commitment to the environment by mandating that public transportation systems purchase zero emission buses and related equipment when going through the usual process of replacing their fleets. This is in line with the CLCPA that was passed just last year. With everyone's support on this call, we put forward nation-leading legislation that really set an agenda forward, and an aggressive agenda forward. And now it's our obligation to put forward policy to meet the requirements put forth in the CLCPA. These pieces of legislation fall directly in line with that. When the transportation systems do purchase these vehicles, and we expect them to do so en masse with the new capital program coming up and the changes coming across the state, we expect that these transportation systems will make these purchases responsibly. Vendors that are creating jobs should be outlining the jobs that they're creating, establishing fair wages and just wages and living wages for the employees, creating a diversified workforce, and ensuring that there's a relationship with the surrounding community. We do not need any more of a top-down approach. We need these large transportation systems to be responsive to the people that they serve. And the only way that they can do that is if they put forward a path where they're in constant communication with the respective communities across the state. So as we in the Democratic Senate, under the leadership of Andrea Stewart-Cousins, have been advancing an aggressive, progressive agenda for the first time in over a decade. And I know Assemblyman Dinowitz and his colleagues in the Assembly have been driving this agenda forward, but now we have a great partnership that we can drive this agenda forward and finally get it done and over the finish line. So we look forward to working with each and every one of you. The past 6 months have been very difficult. The next 6 months are up in the air. Hopefully we'll be continuing to dig ourselves out of the COVID-19 pandemic, flattening that curve, but we must continue to think progressively and think forward. And this legislation does that. I want to, again, thank all of these amazing advocates for all of your work. And we look forward to hearing from you today. Thank you, Assemblyman.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator Kennedy. And I hope that everybody throughout the state recognizes your leadership on this issue, especially in the New York State Senate. Let me introduce Haylene Choi from the CWA District 1. She's the New York State Political Director. Haylene.
Thanks so much. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Haylene Choi. I'm the State Political Director of the Communications Workers of America, District 1. We represent about 140,000 members in New York, New Jersey, and New England, and about 65,000 members in New York State working in telecom, healthcare, and public sector. I'm so glad to be here today for the launch of the Green Transit, Green Jobs Bill. And I want to thank the bill sponsor, Senator Kennedy, our great friend, and Assemblymember Dinowitz, also our great friend, for introducing this important package of bills. And I also want to thank the coalition for moving this issue forward. You know, I mean, to state the obvious, as we face our path to recovery, it is incumbent on us to make sure that we use this crisis to build a stronger, just, and green economy that works for all communities. If this crisis has taught us one thing, it's really that so many systems have failed us and so many systems are connected, right? We already see how climate change has played into the effects of COVID-19. So more than ever, we need a plan to tackle both, building healthy communities that work for all of us and create good jobs. The transportation sector makes up over a third of carbon emissions in our state. And by electrifying public transit in New York, we can slash emissions, invest in a 21st century transit system, and create good, clean jobs in communities that need them the most. We need to pass the Green Transit, Green Jobs Bill, which would electrify all public transit in New York by 2029. By including the US employment plan, a road-tested good jobs and equity policy, this bill will make sure that every public dollar our state invests in transit electrification supports the creation of thousands of good jobs and training pathways for people who face barriers to employment. New York State public transportation authorities, including the MTA, make up the majority of bus procurements in the country. Where New York goes, the country goes. And by settling the course for electrification, New York State signals to private companies that electric buses are the future. I mean, how can they not be the future, right? So by setting this example, New York shows that our state is open to bus companies investing in our communities to support this new market for their products. We also set a baseline for the kinds of jobs our public money should create. We've always been a proponent of this, that when public dollars are invested, they should be invested in good jobs, right? They should not be invested in jobs that harm people. They should not be invested in jobs that are not good union jobs, right? These are our public dollars, and we have a responsibility to create good jobs. Los Angeles Metro successfully used the US employment plan to create hundreds of good union jobs in electric bus manufacturing in California. New York can do the same thing. We already have over 2 million New Yorkers out of work. Now is the time for New York State to use the power of our public dollars to invest in a fair, climate-safe economy. Let's build on last year's historic climate legislation, the CLCPA, by passing green jobs and green transit. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Now we have Lauren Bailey, who's the Director for Climate Policy from the Tri-State Transportation Campaign.
Good morning, Assemblyman. Thank you so much. My name is Lauren Bailey. I'm the Director of Climate Policy for Tri-State Transportation Campaign. Tri-State's a 27-year-old organization that works in New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York to work on 4 things: fixing our commutes, making transportation fair, reducing pedestrian deaths, and why we're really here today, meeting our climate goals. Green Transit, Green Jobs is a bill package that not only reflects our goals, but I also want to introduce our coalition of Electrify New York, which is a coalition of statewide advocates in environment, transportation, labor, and good jobs, and community organizing to really focus on electrification as a solution not only for our transportation sector, but for our communities and their air. Green Transit, Green Jobs is essential to our recovery. Halen, you said it perfectly. I don't need to reiterate anything. Your words are still ringing in my ears about why this is important. But I do want to repeat your point that our transportation emissions are over 1/3 of our total emissions for our state, which is truly embarrassing knowing how many resources we have at our disposal to try to begin to fix this problem. And another statistic that isn't said as much is that over 3/4 of the petroleum used in New York State is used in transportation as well, which is why zero emission and electrification are such important issues. Now, first of all, I want to thank Senator Kennedy and Assemblyman Dinowitz for supporting this bill and supporting this cause, because Electrify New York sees this as an important and essential component to this, but also because this is very timely. The CLCPA was passed last year. We need to begin operationalizing these items, and to get to fully electrification procurement by 2029, which is what this bill proposes, we need time to get to a point that we can have that be the law of the land and have that be our procurement policy for all of New York. So having that time for innovation, to make sure that we have everything in place, to make sure that the jobs are good, to make sure that our transportation sector is ready and our utility sector is ready, passing Green Transit, Green Jobs now is going to set us up for a future that we know we need, that we know we can get to, and that we know that New York is ready for. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have next from the Environmental Advocates of New York, Rachel Patterson, who is the Climate and Legislative Associate.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here with us and for providing us the opportunity to speak. Thank you in particular to the bill sponsors for leading on these 2 important bills that will help reduce emissions and prioritize good local jobs. We heard from the last 2 speakers that transportation it's the largest sector contributing to greenhouse gas emissions in the state, which is why creating a plan to electrify the public transportation sector is necessary and timely in order to achieve these ambitious goals that we set last year in the passage of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. Diesel emissions have a variety of negative health impacts, such as increased rates of asthma, cardiovascular impacts, and they bring with them harmful co-pollutants. These emissions and their co-pollutants exacerbate the impacts of COVID-19, causing higher rates of death in communities of color. Buses are most used by low-income people and people of color, which is why a plan to electrify our public transportation system must prioritize an equitable transition, which these 2 bills help to do. An equitable transition is one that ensures that bus routes in low-income communities are prioritized and that bus depots in communities of color are properly sited so that the benefits of electrification will be felt most in communities that have been historically the most harmed by these diesel emission pollution. And in addition to that, these two bills will continue to benefit communities by ensuring that the contracting for these buses and infrastructure prioritize local, sustainable, long-term jobs, which is why at Environmental Advocates, we're very much looking forward to continuing to work closely with the bill sponsors and the coalition to ensure that these two bills make it to the governor's desk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have next Miranda Nelson, New York, New Jersey Director, Jobs to Move America.
Thanks so much. Good morning. Jobs to Move America is a national nonprofit that believes that we can have a clean environment and good jobs in the communities that need them most. We work to transform the public contracting process to make sure that companies receiving money use it to create good jobs that sustain communities while combating the climate crisis. We're really excited about this legislation. We think that this package of bills is a crucial piece of legislation that can do both, sustain communities and combat this crisis. And as everyone has been saying, electrifying transit is a really critical step towards reducing emissions. And we are also very excited about its ability to help boost our economy as well. So thanks so much to Assemblymember Dinowitz and Senator Kennedy for leading on these bills. One of the things we're most excited about is that the bill ensures that New York State will invest in good jobs. The bills use policy developed by Jobs to Move America, the U.S. Employment Plan, which, as Assemblymember Dinowitz explains, uses a best value framework that transit agencies like the MTA already use. So they're already taking into account factors like quality and ability to deliver on time, but it also adds incentives for manufacturers to provide good jobs and training pathways to workers here in New York State. As Helen said, Jobs to Move America has used this policy successfully in Los Angeles and Chicago, creating hundreds of good jobs. We're also excited because the bill supports a just transition for incumbent workers by rewarding manufacturers who offer retraining opportunities to maintain the new electric bus fleet that's coming. We think that now is an excellent time for public officials to use their power and influence to make good jobs and climate safe future a reality here in New York. We believe that we can rebuild our infrastructure and our communities if we make our public goods work for the most public good. And these bills do just that. So we're really excited to work with everyone here on supporting them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are so thrilled to see the coming together of the environmental community, transportation advocates, labor behind these bills, because we think that this can make an enormous difference. And by the way, if we clean things up, that's going to also lower some of the healthcare costs. So for those who are concerned about cost, the cost benefits, we believe, far outweigh any costs to enact these two pieces of legislation. Before we take questions, anything else you want to add, Senator Kennedy?
To your point, you are right on. This is a great coalition, and we are forward thinking in bringing together all of these like-minded individuals, from environmental advocates to labor advocates to the policy movers that will help to really inform the state government on creating this new green jobs economy. So I'm just very thankful that we have so many advocates with us on this initiative. And to your point, that the cost of doing nothing far outweighs whatever minimal increased fiscal cost this may be to the state. And when we look back on the decisions that we made in this decade, in 10, 20, 30 years, we want to be proud of what we did to enhance the economy, at the same time keeping in mind the environment and being ahead of the curve when it comes to putting in place policy that will help to defeat climate change. So, again, I'm proud to join with all of these amazing advocates. Again, Assemblyman, thank you for your leadership.
And thank you. Okay, well, if there are any questions from anybody here, we'd be happy to take them. If not, we are going to get to work immediately. We have to get this done, and we believe we can get it done because we believe most of our colleagues in both houses understand the importance of doing this and the huge problems of not doing anything. So, seeing no other questions, I guess we're done. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your advocacy. You all make a huge difference.
We have one question. Which organizations represented have sent legislative support memos to the New York State Legislature? Can we get those sent out via email?
I guess we would have to check to see. First of all, the press release, there is a considerably long list of organizations that are backing it. We'll have to check to see if any of them have actually put out memos. I'm sure some of them have. So if they have, we will send them out. Okay.